Hi folks, welcome to the Cannabis Corner. I'm your host, Kerry Burns. In the last few episodes of the Cannabis Corner, we've been going over all the legal issues from the 1937 Tax Act all the way up through the Controlled Substance Act. And during our history of this period, twice the United States government tried to get the international community to put cannabis on the drug control policy, and in 1912 they turned them down in The Hague. In 1925 they turned them down in Geneva, and it wasn't until the Single Narcotics Act in 1961 that Anslinger and them were finally able to put the cannabis plant on the International Drug Control Board. Now, the international market, the International Drug Control Board, which is run through the United Nations, they have actually changed the nomenclature in their latest report. Instead of calling it marijuana or a drug or anything like that, they are now referring to it as it should be, and that is as the cannabis herb. Every time you read anything that comes out of the United Nations Drug Report of the Drug Control Office, they will refer to it from now on as the cannabis herb. And that's basically what it is. It's an herb. And it does have a few side effects, one of them being euphoria that gets you high. But there are so many good benefits of this plant, and the very fact that they have it under any kind of control is beyond me. And hopefully with this Proposition 19 coming through in California, we're going to see some big changes in this country and really get this herb off of any kind of scheduling and off of any kind of control. But one of the big problems about having a substance like cannabis illegal is the cost that we spend to try to eradicate it or to enforce it. There are economists today that said if we legalize marijuana tomorrow, that we would save our government in excess of $25 billion annually. Not to mention the fact that we would open the doors for $1 trillion a year hemp industry. Now, I know that it doesn't take too many people out there to be a rocket scientist to figure out that our economy is in bad shape and we don't have jobs for these people and stuff. And if we adopt an industry like this, particularly a green industry where the door is wide open. I mean, if you open up the hemp industry and legalize cannabis, there's going to be so many different avenues of work, from the processing to the products being made to the shops selling the different products, including the cannabis herb to smoke. You could see that we could put a healthy dent into this economy that we're doing. But we choose, in other words, this path of this war on drugs. And there's a lot of consequences of having this war on drugs, not to mention the costs. Each year, this country spends in excess of $50 billion to fight this war. And all we do, it seems like, we never gain any ground. Drugs are cheaper now. They're more plentiful than they've ever been. The gangs are going crazy in Mexico. I mean, when you look at the fact that 3,000 to 5,000 people are dying every year along the border towns of Mexico just because of the drug cartel control, is that really worth us chasing after and pretty much, this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand. The bulk business that the cartels are trying to control is the marijuana business or the cannabis business in the United States. True, they do smuggle amphetamines, they do smuggle heroin, they do smuggle cocaine, but the bulk of their money, the bulk of all of their efforts is to control this cannabis market that could be a homegrown market here in the United States. So if you just start looking at the costs of things, and when the drug war really got underway with Reagan and Bush in the early 80s, you can look at the charts for the amount of murders committed in the United States, and pretty much it followed a pretty flat line trend along with the population. But when the drug war started, you can almost superimpose these charts one over the other, where the arrests just skyrocketed, the murder rates skyrocketed, and this is what we really got to start looking at. We need to look at the consequences of human life out there that are far, far greater than anything the drugs themselves can cause. Did you know that less people die from all illicit drugs combined than do from aspirin overdose? Aspirin overdose kills over 20,000 people a year in this country. There's less than 2,000 people a year that die from heroin overdose. And all illicit drugs combined kill less than 15,000 people a year. So we're pumping a lot of money to control these substances that really aren't as dangerous as, say, alcohol or tobacco, which take out 500,000 plus every year. I mean, if you look at the cost of what state medical costs are through Medicaid programs and different things. Okay, if you look at illicit drugs, what they cost the states combined is around $1 billion a year in medical costs. Of these are people that have gone in for drug treatment, drug overdose, things like that. Tobacco costs 7 times that amount. It's $7.6 billion a year. And it's not the hardcore one like alcohol, which is 10 times more. It costs us $10 billion a year from the effects of alcohol. From the effects of from alcohol. If you take the effects of alcohol and cigarettes together, we're looking at about $20 billion that this costs the states in Medicare costs and health care costs in general. And then when you look down at the fact that all illicit drugs combined is around $1 billion, we have 20 times that amount with the 2 drugs that are legal. Does it really make a lot of sense to be pumping $40 to $50 billion a year to try to control the drug problem in the United States? Why don't we just offer drug treatments to these people and just get the police out of it? And particularly in the case of cannabis, because there never has been anybody recorded dying from overdose of cannabis. It just can't happen. Our brain receptors in our body don't allow overdose to happen. It's just impossible to go on. And the fact that nobody's ever even been to an emergency room visit for cannabis pretty much shows you that we're not spending a lot of money for health care when it comes to the people out there using cannabis. And we're not spending a whole lot on illicit drugs when you compare what alcohol and tobacco are doing. And the fact that we give the gangs this power to go around and murder people, and that's how they do. They operate by strict, strong arm control. They'll move into these border towns, anywhere where they feel like that they can operate business, and they start killing people. And eventually they kill out the people that are standing in their way trying to stop that. And that's not going to change as long as we have drugs illegal, and particularly as long as we have cannabis illegal. Cannabis would be a perfect place to start. If we would legalize cannabis across the board, start taking into account all of the products that this one plant, and it's very unique. There are very few plants in the world that are multifunctional. This plant is extremely multifunctional. It not only produces the flower top herbs, which everybody enjoys smoking, but this is a medicinal herb. It has so many medicinal values. It'll help cure depression. It's good for glaucoma. It's good for nausea for cancer patients. There's even been studies done where it prevents certain tumors from growing in the body. The list goes on. And when you think about the fact that the United States government has suppressed most of the research on this plant just because they want to keep it illegal, there's no telling what we'd find out what the benefits of this plant are. We certainly haven't found out anything detrimental about it, like they would like to hope and pray that someday somebody come up and say, "Oh, you hear about that? Somebody died from smoking pot." Boy, they would love to hear a story like that, because then it would justify all of this law enforcement and all the money that we spend on this. Since 1982, we are incarcerating up to 3 to 10 times more people than we had in jail during this early period, and it's all from the drug war. It isn't like we've got more murders and more rapes and stuff going on out there, and all those are pretty much kept with the population increases and all. But these jail cells that are filling up, and it's not only just in federal jails, it's in the state level, and it's also in the local jail. And we've also quadrupled to tenfold the amount of people on probation. And we take these people that, for the most part, a lot of them, that all they've been arrested for is possession of cannabis, and they've had their entire life ruined. They've got a prison sentence, they've got probation, they can't go get a job that pays anything because they have that on the record, all because they chose to use a safe herb that kills nobody and is the least burden on society versus going the alcohol path, which has been proven many times over, not only through Prohibition back in the 20s, but has been proven many, many times over today, what a health threat it is and how much money it costs our society and all. And it just doesn't seem that we're spending our tax dollars very wisely. I think that the Drug Enforcement Agency should be abolished. If anything, if these people are worried about their jobs, become the Drug Education Agency and educate people about drug abuse and stuff, and set up drug treatments for the people who really get addicted to hardcore drugs. But the top 3 that you need to go after, though, to give drug treatment for, at least the ones that are causing the most problems and causing the most cost, are alcohol, cigarettes, and prescription drugs. The illicit drugs, and particularly cannabis, they're way down on the list of the problems they're causing. And it makes you think that maybe a lot of this was just for the fact that we were building a police state. And this was big money. Big money for the courts. This is big money for the lawyers, big money for the judges, big money for the private prison systems, even the state systems. Right now, today, we are costing ourselves in excess of $150 a day to house every inmate we've got in prison. And when you look at the fact that most of them in there for cannabis herb, and it's in there and they're in there for possession, some for distribution, but mainly for possession, the bulk of them. This is just a lot of costs that shouldn't be burdening our society. And the fact that we could take this plant and turn it into an economic boon, create lots of jobs and all, it just seems sort of detrimental for us to keep going the route we're going. So I urge all of you to really write to your congressman, write to everybody and tell them, look, this plant is not what you've been brainwashed to believe. It actually is a very beneficial plant. It has medicinal aspects that are very beneficial. It has agricultural aspects that are very beneficial. As a textile, it's extremely beneficial. And these types of things, when you put them into our society today, if we did it today, it would be a boon to our society. We would have jobs open up immediately, and we could start businesses at the drop of a hat with very little money going into it if we would just do it. But it goes to show you the powers that be, the ones that control everything, they probably are the ones that are on the end of making the money, because there is absolutely no reason, no foundation, absolutely nothing economical about any of this that makes sense. So write your congressman. Let's see if we can get this changed. And on the next edition of the Cannabis Corner, we're going to start going into the practical aspects of this plant and all of the medicinality aspects that it has, and how we can take this from the society that we're in today and make cannabis legal and incorporate it right into our society just like you would any other industry. So join us for the next episode of the Cannabis Corner. Thank you very much.